Hmm. Good Tuesday evening for those of you in my time zone, anyway, and here on this side of the world. And happy Wednesday to all of you on the other side. anyway, um, anyway, it's a good day. Well, it's a busy, busy day. There is a lot going on in true crime everywhere. For those of you who follow me and many others, you may have noticed on the thumbnail I linked three of the women that we're following currently. One of them's new. It's probably going to take a little bit of time. And I'm going to do an update, but I owe you a deep dive on the whole case. And I realized that. So don't call me out in the chat. I get it. Like, that is coming, and I will give you everything. But we are going to talk about Karen Reed today, even though it'll be the first time. But I'm definitely very interested all of a sudden in this case. Now, I had avoided it. I will admit, I did avoid it. I was going to avoid it. Mostly because you guys know how I feel about the media and or those of us in true crime interfering with investigations and ongoing trials. And well, the Karen Reed trial, which hasn't started yet, it's still an updating case. It is scheduled to trial soon, and we'll talk about that. But it has a lot of that in it. Mm-hmm. And a lot. And we're going to go into it. And I'm going to keep it in check, and we're going to just go over the facts, okay? Because you guys know how I roll that way. The other two women that I would like to discuss their cases are Courtney Clenney out of Florida, and out of New Mexico, we have Hannah Gutierrez, which is part of the Rust civil. Like, no, not only is she part of the civil lawsuits that have been going on already, but this is the criminal trial for for manslaughter for her, based on the unsafe application and use of a firearm. It resulted in death. So we're gonna go over that also. Hey, Liam and Rocket Couch, and welcome, Amy. It's nice to see you, and I see your message about how busy you've been with Matt, and I hope everything's going well. Miss talking to you, boo. I'm glad that everything's going better. Hey, Mandy, Shill, it's always nice to have you here. You know, it's good. It's good. All right, so Liam, I got the banner. Look at that. And Rocket Couch, I'm glad you crossed that off your bingo card, because that should be the free space. It's like a given. It's a given. Always, you know? Anyway, do you guys have a preference with which one we start with? Since I'm going to fill you with so much, which one are you the most interested in hearing about first? Would you like the update on? I've got some ideas on Courtney Clenney that I want to share with you. There's the trial of Hannah Gutierrez has already started, so I have a brief update on what's going on there. And then there's some news on Karen Reed too, because she just did have a hearing and there was some major filings and movement over there that I just want to bring everybody up to date. The blue one, none of them are wearing blue. Let's see. We've got gray, red, and black. Rocket. I don't know. I don't know. Mm. I tried to use a courthouse. I tried to pick one of my favorite courthouses or courtrooms to use for this thumbnail. But after I got reading all of the updates, it was like, holy moly. This is all such a storm of like stuff. It is just all smoke and mirrors. It is just was more appropriate to bring in the thunder. Welcome, Amy. Thank you so much for joining. Amy, I'm going to have to see. I'm going to send you an invite to the Discord so you can keep up with the cases. There. I'm so glad to have you on board. Thank you. And I'm glad things are going well. I am. What blue one, Rocket Couch? I still don't know. Yes. I still don't know. It's just like, I still have your Discord ID, so I'll send it through that way if that's okay with you. But if not, just tell me how to contact you here in the messages, okay? Rocket, really? Okay. So now, guys, come on, somebody give me a hit, or else I'm just gonna dive in. Okay, I'm gonna dive in. Which one? Let's see. Say Hannah, Courtney, or Karen. Like, we'll use first names just to get into it, and then I'll be proper afterwards. Let's see. I don't see any preferences. All right. You know what? All right. So, you know what happens then? Dealer's choice. Is that what they say? Okay. So I'm going to go to the end. Oh, Mippet said Hannah right before I switched. Okay, Mippet, you win. You get your choice because you're the only one who said. Although, you would have probably outweighed most of them anyway. Okay. Heinous Decker's most foul. Y'all started without the pro. Oh, I'm sorry, Jean. And I started late tonight too because I had some internet issues. So I do apologize, you guys, for the short notice. But I went to log in at quarter of, and my internet was all boop boop. I needed to bring it all down and get it rebooted out in the garage from the box and the whole thing. And it took like 30 minutes to get everything straightened out. So that's why I moved it a little bit rather than have everything fall down on us. All right. All right, based on what Mippy said, we're going to start with let's start with Hannah. Okay. This is the movie set of Rust. Hannah Gutierrez is on trial for the event that happened where Alex Baldwin shot a prop gun, had live ammunition in it. It hit through Hannah Hutchinson, killing her, and went through her and injured Joel Souza, the director. Same bullet. Okay. Live ammo in a prop gun, big problem. Okay. There are multiple civil lawsuits in regards to these that some have been settled already, and we talked about that prior. They are linked to the true crime playlist below, and you can find it. It's called the Rust case updates, and there's talk of the civil suits in there that have already been settled. I have one more to add to it today. But there's criminal charges too. Now, way back when this happened, Alec Baldwin was also charged, but then the charges were dropped. Now, they're both being charged with the same thing. Unsafe handling of a firearm, not having a protected site, like not doing their job, not taking due diligence in causing the death of another. Manslaughter, second degree. Now, Alec Baldwin was off on it and just got recharged in January. So the prosecution lost the opportunity to try them both at the same time, which would have been a big advantage because it's based on the testimony. It's going to be a lot of repeats. Okay. They have actually picked a jury, and we're in trial now with Hannah Gutierrez. We're on day 4, I believe. And there's been quite a few witnesses. In the beginning, it was mostly the first ones on the scene. There's a lot of names that I could give you, but I did actually post a link to a summary article that will pretty much bring you up to date. The two articles I lead, because what I really want to talk about is what they're actually putting out there. Okay, the opening statements were pretty much the same as what we've heard through the media. Or the defense is saying that Hannah Gutierrez is a likely scapegoat for the producers based on the unsafe conditions of the set to be that have already been previously documented before the incident happened. And now that's a big thing there. Okay. And people seem to be glossing over that. The Rust producers, let's just make it clear, we're already in violation of safety protocols on their sets multiple times. The regulating committee, your OSHA, their version of OSHA had already said that they had not had safe conditions. Okay. The morning of the incident, there was a walk-off of quite a few employees because of the unsafe conditions on the set. That kind of leaves the door like wide open for the defense to say, nobody knows who brought these live rounds on the set. Everybody's blaming Hannah Gutierrez. She's young. She's the perfect target. She's 24. She's not had a lot of experience as an armorer. Not only did they make her the armorer, they made her the props master at the same time, doubling up, being cheap, as some of them have actually used the word. Rust producers trying to save money actually made unsafe protocols on the set. Okay. Yes, Amy. And there was already documented evidence of several other live ammunition exchanges on set, accidents with the guns prior, which is very scary. I agree with you. Very scary. Okay. So here we have the Rust producers who have already in violation. They're already having employee troubles. The employees walk off that morning. Okay. And the incident happens. It's a tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy. Oh, what has happened? But who's to blame is the hard part. This is Hannah Hutchinson who lost her life. That's her husband and her son, who, as we talked about before, there was a civil lawsuit which they settled. The husband was put on as a producer to earn money from the film as it came out. They continued production. They finished production last May and they're putting it out. Okay. And have listed him so that there will be proceeds that are all put in the name plus lump sum settlement in the name of the son to be given as he's an adult in settlement of this wrongful death lawsuit that they brought. They settled right away. Okay. This is our judge, Marlo Summer, who is now actually going over this case, the current trial with Hannah. Alec has just received a date. He will be going on trial this summer. Well, they're trying Hannah and Alec separately. And so far, there has been testimony. Most of the testimony has been in regards to the condition of the set when they got there, the chaos that was going on at the time, seeing live rounds mixed with other bullets in several different places. They were documented, and I tell you, there were 6 live rounds discovered by law enforcement agencies on the set when they came to the scene. Okay, the scene was chaotic. People were coming and going. They did not have enough officers to secure the whole scene. What I'm telling you now is all come out in the last couple of days with the law enforcement officers that were put on to the stand. First officer on the scene and then the controlling officer afterwards. They also brought in the gun technician who also said that the gun, there was nothing wrong with the gun. The gun did what it was supposed to do. Okay, the gun had been damaged during the testing, and then the reason that Alec Baldwin got tried after the charges were dropped was because new testing, after they brought the new gun specialist in that was able to recreate and do the gun all over again, had proved that the gun did not misfire, as Alec said. Alec Baldwin has gone on the record, and he will be testifying in this trial too, from what I read on the witness list. The defense is going to, he's been saying he did not pull that trigger. And yet they're saying the gun could not fire without it, and which is why he's facing charges also. But back to Hannah's trial. Hannah has sat stoically, or not showing a lot of emotion, listening to the testimony. However, yesterday, there was a Dolly employee by the Ross Adiego, who testified that she was very unprofessional, very unexperienced. He'd never worked with anyone like her before. He had a long history of working with armors on movies, at least 12 other armors. And he painted Hannah to be aloof and not very careful and not uptight. He actually said uptight. That other armors he worked with were very, very serious and uptight all the time about handling everything. He said that she actually carried the ammunition to put in the guns in a fanny pack, and he'd never seen that before. He called that unprofessional because it didn't come out of a container. When pressed, what kind of container? He did not talk about sealed packs of dummy ammunition, as you would expect. If he's going to call someone unprofessional for having it loose, I'm thinking, well, then it's all, a brand new pack or something, and something coming out of a labeled from the manufacturer box. But no, He said other armorers had them in sealed plastic containers and such, or boxes that they kept in different areas. So it wasn't so much that it was in the fanny pack, it was that it wasn't labeled and etc. But we don't know if she had taken it from a sealed pack and put it in to that fanny pack. I mean, she may be able to testify to that, the process. But what I found, but a lot of it is very unprofessional. What they're actually presenting her as being not very professional about her job. They're inferring now that there was drug use and this, that, and the other thing, and all the evidence that they're pointing to is offset drug use, except for the witness, the evidence tampering thing, to where they have a text message between her and another employee where she was asking them to take drugs off the set that she may have had in her purse or somewhere in her personal belongings. That doesn't necessarily say she was using them at work. She's never tested positive, nor did they ever ask her to test, or she asked erratically to where she had any kind of reprimands on set for anything like that. There is evidence that she was a pot smoker and may partied offset. Where are the lines? Okay. I do think the defense drew a couple of really good parallels here when they said that based on all the unsafe conditions prior, to blame it on just Hannah. Although she has accountability here. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Hannah Gutierrez is innocent, but I'm saying that they all are guilty. Okay, David Halls, who was also responsible for checking the gun and the conditions on set, already pled guilty and made a deal. He knew his accountability. He didn't waste the court's time. He's not wasting the state's money in prosecuting him. He knew he had accountability based on his job description, and he felt horrible about what happened, and he took that responsibility. He was the one who handed the gun to Alec Baldwin. Hannah Gutierrez is the one who preloaded that gun. David was supposed to check it too. They all were supposed to check it, including, and let's make this really clear, Alec Baldwin. Because proper handling of a gun is always on the gun, the person who has it in their hand. Okay? Like, that has to be too. Okay? It has to be too. So it's like everybody's responsible. And for them, like everybody, just like the bigger, the producers of Rust, including Alec Baldwin, because he's pointing the finger through his interview and everything. He's never taken any accountability. He said he absolutely didn't pull that trigger. He says he sleeps well at night. He knows he did nothing wrong. And I say that's not so true. As a producer, you have responsibility. And as a producer, you've already been sanctioned for the horrible conditions on your set. How do you say that out in public to the family who lost someone to these conditions of your set, to things that you put in motion? I mean, a little bit of accountability. I mean, we talk about this a lot, right? A little bit of accountability could ease a lot of these things. Usually when there's civil lawsuits and all, everybody thinks it's about money. Most of the time, it's about grieving hurt and pain and righting a wrong and justice, and about people who will not take accountability for the crazy, awful crap that happens. Did he intend to hurt anyone? No. Did the conditions on those set cause it? Absolutely. There's accountability that needs to be taken there. And everybody's worried about money. Everybody's worried about being guilty. And so everybody's saying hands off and trying to put it all on the most likely target, the person with the job responsibility, and that was Hannah Gutierrez. However, did the big question for me after listening to the testimony, that, and this isn't even the defense putting up the witnesses, this is the prosecution. And what I'm hearing through all of this is that the set itself is the main culprit here. The actual conditions that they were filming under, the chaotic scenarios that were happening, the events of firearms going off with live ammunition on set in violation, Okay, people walking off the set because it's too dangerous to work there. Not one person, not two persons, not three persons, a whole group of them walk off. There's more here than just Hannah Gutierrez, and it's coming to light. I really felt for the dolly worker, Mr. Adio, because he watched his friend Joel Souza get shot, heard him crying in pain. He was obviously angry at Hannah Gutierrez while he testified. He had nothing good to say, but he also had to admit about all the other things that were going on the set. Hannah was not responsible for the gun handling safety instruction to the actors. That was David Hall, the director, the producer. They had to, and it seems that the actors didn't want to comply, did not comply fully, and it wasn't completely done. But that wasn't Hannah, and that came out too. Okay. When asked on stand under oath if he knew how those live bullets got on set, he had no answer. When every law enforcement agent asked, was everything secured so much that, like, is there any way that evidence could have been removed? They had to say yes, because the carts where the ammunition and the guns were not secured for long periods of time. The car where they stored some of the evidence could not be manned. There were not enough law enforcement officers on the set. Before they even got there, people left. Not everybody was there that was there. They have no way to see exactly who is where, except for the piecing of the interviews by each person. They have text messages between Seth Kenney, who is actually the ammunition supplier, who is, it's already on record that the company that supplies the dummies that they usually use on this set from Hannah Gutierrez doesn't make live rounds. And that the ammunition provider actually admitted to making live rounds in those kind of shells that look like that, and that had some of them in a prior teaching the actors the actual the recoil on the gun and getting them used to it. They took them, it was supposed to be done offset in a shooting range, but they kind of did it where they are, had the actors shoot with live ammunition. And so he actually admitted that. Okay. And Sarah Zachary actually threw ammunition away before law enforcement could get it. There's so much, Mandy. It's horrible. It's actually horrible. If you are moving the gun fast while practicing quick draw, there's enough kinetic energy from motion to cause the gun to cycle if ever the fingertip gets in front of the trigger. They did say it would take more. He admitted to having his finger on the trigger. He did. I just know if I tried half the stuff they seem to have gotten away with on the set in terms of firearm safety when I was in the Army Cadets, I'd have been sent home with my insides on the outside. Exactly. Because it's just, there is so much neglect here. And that's what I wanted to bring to light. Like, at first we thought, like, hands down, she's responsible here. But I think there's so much more to it than that. It's an interesting trial for that. And I'm not covering it live, but I do have links down there, in Law and Crime and Court TV are streaming it live every day. I think Emily D. Baker is also, although she does talk during it, so that can be, it's not like when I do it where there's no talk while they're presenting. But, you can get a good idea. They do summations at night. There's a lot, but it is more interesting than we thought. And we're going to keep updating you on it. It is a lot. Yes, Mandy, it is a lot. But one of the most fascinating parts for me happened is that the prosecution was asking about text messages that went back and forth, and actually released Hannah Gutierrez with the defense, confirmed in public, live on television, her phone number. Now, I don't know if the next thing I'm going to tell you about has anything to do with that, but Hannah apparently got a bit of harassment afterwards, and she was a bit upset. And an oral argument was made to the judge to release one of her attorneys from the case. And the judge kind of did yes and no. Okay. The judge did a yes and a no on that one. They actually made the attorney that actually did the opening arguments, Jason Bowles. He did an excellent job, and he has been the one interviewing the witnesses right now. He is now the lead attorney along with someone else. Okay, but the other attorney she's not too happy with, and hold on, I'll get you the name in a second, was actually told to stay on the case, to sit at the table, to assist the other attorneys. But however, at the request of Hannah Gutierrez Reed, not to speak to her. Do not speak to her. You can defend her. You can be her defense attorney, but don't talk to her. And I kid you not, that is how the judge put the order out, that was her request. Now, she would not remove him from the team. They are in the middle of the trial, and whatever the grievance is, and it was a client grievance that was brought forward. That much we got. But we're never going to know what happened. Like, we're just not going to know. I don't think they're ever going to tell us exactly who, because she made Jason Bowles the head of the defense team, but she has asked Todd Bullion, I think it's pronounced Bullion like the cube, and if I'm mispronouncing it, Attorney Bullion, I apologize. Well, he has actually been asked to, just sit there. He is asked to refrain from directly communicating with the defendant as requested by the defendant, and that's in writing on the judge's order. Yep. And that was a public release on Twitter. I actually saw photos of that. I do have the copies in my Discord, but I don't have a download link for you guys. But it was a minute order that was put out by the judge. She also has another she has been allowed to add a new co-counsel, Mrs. Monica Barreras. That's been added, and her participation, she'll be fast-tracked in there to be able to sit at the table and to help Jason Bowles in actually in regards to communicating with Hannah Gutierrez. But he's not to talk to her at all. Okay. They did go over the oral argument, but the judge did not see enough there to actually grant it in full and just let him go, and that was from our Judge Somner. Okay, so all of the attorneys were then granted that everything's going to go forward, but we're not going to know the actual reason. But there was the disclosure of her phone number, and she may be upset about that. I'm not sure. That was a bit of a misball there. There was an objection, and there was a confirmation of the phone number, and I don't know. So let's see. Do you guys remember when a crew was filming on some train tracks back in the 90s, maybe, and they were filming on what they thought was a retired track and it wasn't? Oh gosh, like that, I can imagine. I do recall something about that, but that had to be horrible if what I think happened. Yeah. But anyway, on Hannah, the trial's still going on. We're expected to have another week of at least of testimony before it goes to the trial. I'll have better detail for you as far as the witness list and all, especially when the defense comes forward, because like this angle was something when I did my first review of this case, I hadn't actually thought about like the broader accountability here that was pushing against Hannah, and they're all pointing at Hannah. Okay. The other thing that I want to mention is, unfortunately, in a civil case, we've had another attorney fall down on the job, and his client has to pay for it. And it's only fair to mention that the medic who treated both Joel Souza and Hannah Hutchinson on scene there had filed against everybody for millions of dollars. Okay. And Sarah Zachary, the prop assistant to Hannah Gutierrez, was mentioned in there too. And she had her own attorney who never filed anything for her in time. She got new attorneys and pushed back. There was a settlement agreed to of $1.5 million in May. Okay. Which unfortunately Sarah is on the hook for, because recent motions by her new attorneys did not persuade the judge as to why she should be granted like a reason to why she did not file anything in regards to the case in defense of herself at all. The summary judgment went through because the original attorney put things to Rust producers and the insurance company and expected them to handle it for her. And of course, they're worried about their stuff. They didn't do anything for Sarah Zachary, even though she was an employee of the Rust producers at the time and covered by the insurance company. But it still was, as the judge came down and said, unfortunately for Sarah, it still was that attorney's responsibility to make sure the Rust producers got her covered with another attorney in filings, and or the insurance company did. They cannot just make assumptions. Sarah had hired him to, and he was listed as counsel for her on the documentation, and he did nothing. So she's, unfortunately, she's got a case for malpractice against him, though. Hopefully, he can come up with some of that summary judgment to help her pay it, because that's what's going to have to happen. You know, this judge was not messing around. Although the other team made great points, she said she couldn't even consider them because there was no good cause as to why the attorney did not respond. Period. And that's unfortunate. There's another civil suit update. The rest, the insurance company, the Rust producers, and those other employees that were named, including Hannah Gutierrez, in the civil suit, that judgment is with the judge now. The amount that Sarah's going to have to pay is still up to the judge. They haven't put in the exact amount yet, but it is in regards to the $1.5 million lawsuit that already was settled in May under civil. Okay, Sarah's was just an adjunct part of it that was still in the works because of this attorney stuff going on. Well, yeah, that's a lot on Hannah Gutierrez, right? Yeah. Okay, and let me just check for questions on Hannah, and this will be ongoing. I figure at the end of the week or on next week I'll give you more on what happens during the trial. Just a brief summation. I'll try to get the witness list and the key points of information, but basically that's basically what came out so far this week. Everything to do about the gun, the condition of the set when they got there, the chaos that ensued, all the statements that were made, all of the prior events that happened regards to the producers of the Rust set itself. It was crazy. It was crazy. 2014. I see, Mandy. Thank you. Okay. All right. So, Clenney or Reed? What do you guys think? Hi, Mousy. Good to see you. Okay, Clenney, Mandy, you got it. Let's go to Clenney. Let me just get this up for her. There's not much on Clenney, but again, I've got a really interesting angle that I want to discuss in regards to Clenney. Let's bring her back up. Courtney Clenney. Okay. Now, recently we discussed the fact that additional charges were put on not only her but her parents for the discovery of that they had discovered a laptop in the apartment after the police had left. In other words, they took all the evidence they wanted in the shared apartment of Courtney Clenney and Christian Abumsali. Okay, Courtney is going to trial for his murder. She's been accused of murdering him. She claims self-defense. Okay, recently, in discovering communications in Courtney Clenney's cloud, this is important. Okay, because all three of these cases I'm bringing tonight have a common thread. That those of you who stay for the whole thing, I want to know if you actually pick up thread that I put the three of them together for. Well, in the cloud, Courtney Clenney had her communications, text messages, everything. Everything was stored that way. We all know this, right? Well, in the discovery of the laptop, in the charges against Courtney Clenney and her parents, Kim and Deborah, who were arrested while they were in Texas and then had to come to Miami to face arraignment for withholding evidence in, tampering with evidence in regards to, this murder charges. Okay. Now, what's come to light is that they found out about them having this laptop, which the defense clearly puts forward was a shared laptop because they both were in the home together. They had each other's passwords. She used his laptop. He used her laptop. When the police left, they figured there wasn't anything in regards to this laptop. So they wanted to get in there and see if there was anything in regards to videos that would help Courtney Clenney in her defense. So Courtney Clenney's parents, Courtney Clenney, and the attorneys started communicating in regards to the laptop. And I'll say again, the Clenney attorneys communicating, everybody communicating in regards to this laptop. Okay. They turned the laptop over to the attorneys. The problem is prosecution is using the attorney privileged text messages to make their charges. Anybody see anything funny about that? Are not the communications between Courtney Clenney and her two attorneys, who are now witnesses in these second charges, by the way, Sabrina Puglisi and Frank Prito have decided not to represent her in this because they're actually going to be witnesses about this. Okay, and about what happened. They have stepped down, and new attorney has been is taking over that. The actual Clenney parent attorneys are from Rasman and Fasciodomo, and there was like Jude Fasciodomo is the one who is actually doing the statements for the family, and I think I have a picture of him. Hold on one second. This is Jude. Those are Courtney's parents. That's Sabrina Puglisi, who's one of the defense attorneys standing next. Now, they are actually going to be witnesses in these new charges. Okay, the parents have been arraigned and are out on bail. Courtney has been arraigned at her last hearing also in regards to this. Everybody pleads not guilty because they say you can't get us for evidence tampering when, number one, it wasn't evidence, and number two, it didn't belong solely to him. He may have used it all the time. Okay. But there is transactions in there from her also, and she would have had the password. So how could they say there was solo ownership? Hey, Pete, I am so glad it's a non-Monday, and I'm so glad to see you. I am. And hey, Mrs. Cassandra, it's good to see you too. Okay, so these attorneys are now saying that this was attorney-client privilege. This is moot. This is prosecutorial harassment of the parents and trying to discredit the attorneys. The attorneys have come straight out and said that this is just the worst that they have ever seen. They could have just asked for the laptop. They could have had it. There's nothing on the laptop. They would have shown them everything. There was no need for any of this, actually. And the fact that they are using attorney-client privileged text messages is kind of like a big misstep on my side. I am curious to see what the legal precedent back and forth will be for this because, well, my first instinct is that the prosecution wouldn't bring these charges. They thought they were going to get called out like that, like that. Like there must be some precedent, some loophole that allows them to do this if it's egregious. But then if there was absolutely nothing on that laptop anyway, how could they say it was egregious? Just having the password doesn't mean that they didn't interfere with anything which may have implicated their daughter. This is true. But you see, the prosecution doesn't show anything that says they did interfere. They're just saying because they accessed the laptop. Now, yes, they were looking for things to try to defend their daughter. Okay. Yeah, they were. And they have a right to. Any parent would. Okay. And they did have the daughter's permission to go into the laptop. She gave it to them. Okay. The point is that how do they prove it wasn't a shared laptop? How do they prove it was just solo ownership? And then how do they get around the fact that they're the ones who left it in the apartment to begin with? If the police wanted it and wanted it to be part of evidence and it was part of the investigation, why wasn't it with them? It was discovered after they released the apartment and it wasn't hidden anywhere. Okay, so there's mistakes on all sides here. But what troubles me the most is the using of the messages between the client and the attorney in their filings. I don't know. To me, that's a problem. But anyway, we're going to see this one going forward. I found it commendable that Puglisi and Prito actually stepped aside so that they could be formal witnesses and give good testimony. Yep. I love how users forget that these things have log files. Exactly. They're going to be able to show who accessed it when, what was in there, if anything was deleted. It's not going to be a problem. You see, because in the filing, Jin, the prosecution did not list anything like deleted files or anything like that. No, they didn't. Which to me, I would think if you had cold evidence of it, you would say, like, here, because you want people to make a deal, right? You want them, when they come up against their charges, to actually fold their cards and say, okay, you got me. Like, okay, let's go. But they have nothing like that so far. Now, it's very difficult to get all of the details because a lot of it is still playing out. But there will be hearings in a trial, and particularly on these charges too, and we'll be following that one too. I just thought it was much more information than we had last time when they actually released all of the text messages that actually led them to believing that they had this laptop, and they were the conversations with the attorneys in there, and they released them like that. They were talking about the defense. They were talking about Courtney Clenney's defense. That is privileged. Sounds like the lawyers even forgot. Should have talked with a forensic computer expert before getting the laptop. Exactly. And who knows, they may have. That's still to come out in the defense's filings. We have to see what the new attorneys file in regards to protecting Puglisi and Prieto, whether they need their own attorneys too. They haven't been charged, but they are on the witness list. Okay. And we have to see what comes out there in regards to maybe they did have their computer expert and they did take care of everything and get the log files. And then what would the actual prosecution have to complain about if they actually secured the log files and everything? And if the log files are actually still available to the prosecution, they haven't really lost anything. When prompted for the turning over of this laptop, it was given. And they were notified of it by the defense. I get that, Liam, but they have to prove the felony, don't they? Mm-hmm. And that lawyer privilege, they're trying to say that the lawyer's saying that, do not, do this, do not do that. Like, we're going to have to just turn it over to the lawyers and we'll take it from there. That's not a felony. And accessing the I don't see how accessing the laptop was a felony, because at the time they accessed it, it was just joint property. I mean, there's a good angle there for defense on joint property. In accessing it under joint property is not a felony. Yep, you see, that's what they're trying to say, Mandy, that they were tampering with evidence. And that's the prosecution's line, but I want to see what evidence they were tampering with. Because like the and this is the defense. The defense is saying there's nothing on the laptop. Prosecution's saying they're not so sure there's nothing on the laptop because they could have got rid of it. But the log files would say so. So the log files would have to be presented to do that. And I don't think the family would be fighting this hard if those log files are able to be presented and show that they deleted anything, because it will. And Jin knows this. I know this. Forensic computer science is used with the with computer data, cell phones, all of this in court every day. Nothing is gone forever. There's always a trace of what you have done, unless you destroyed that thing completely. You took the hard drive out of it and it was missing. There's no way. There's no way. Exactly. You know what? It is an interesting science, isn't it, Rocket Couch? In digital forensics, you can't imagine how I'd convince my work to cover the cost of a course of that. I tell you, if it would save them money, if they're losing money because people are deleting things or not completing things or stuff like that, well, maybe, because yeah. Exactly, Doug. I agree with you. People are. And thank you. It's so nice to see you here. I always like to see you here. I hope you're doing well, dog. Yep. Eh. But anyway, this is an interesting angle on this case that I hadn't it just got slammed in my face today. I linked the video, I believe, in regards to this below. I think it was put out by, I want to say it was Court TV, did an interview. The attorney who used to be a judge actually did the interview with the two defense attorneys, and I think they've made some valid claims here, like some valid things to think about, I would say. Like, and you know me, I like to be a little unbiased here, like on both sides. At first, when it came out, I was like, oh, parents, like, parents trying to save their kid, just getting in the way and making it messy, especially after we heard the way Courtney Clenney was acting in jail and how she's not such a nice girl there. Like, she's putting on these airs, but not so. She's got little incidents going of entitlement, and she's frustrated too, a little bit on the Sarah Boone part. She's frustrated if there's stuff coming on, but like, her defense attorneys are working hard to keep her from a guilty charge, a guilty verdict. But the parents here, to arrest them all the way in Texas for all of this and have them extradited and all of that, when they could have just called them in, I don't know. It seemed a bit much. I'm just hoping the prosecution can back it up. And I really want to see what the prosecution has. And as soon as I get to see it, I will bring it to you. Okay. And on that, I think we're going to go on to this other very interesting case. And I know I'm already past my hour, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Because I do owe you a deep dive. But basically, I had recently said that I was actually looking forward to covering this trial that was coming up. I recently got interested in covering the Karen Reed trial, which was scheduled for March 12th. But I need to tell you that the most recent hearing, which was just the other day, on Karen Reed, the judge has said, nope, based on a few things, we have to move it. And it's going to be April 16th now. So not too much farther. We're still going to cover it. And I owe you a deep dive on the history. But basically, in a nutshell, Karen Reed is being accused of backing into or having an accident with John O'Keefe, her then boyfriend, police officer John O'Keefe, leaving the scene of the accident in front of their friend's house who they were out drinking with, and that is the last name that you'll hear a lot of. That is the Albert. Okay. The house was on Fairview Avenue. This is all in Massachusetts. This was in Canton, Massachusetts. The prosecution's coming out of Norfolk County. Okay. This is several years old. A lot of legal back and forth, a lot of shenanigans too. And even the reason I didn't want to cover it was because of all the conspiracy theories. There's quite a few YouTubers out here, true crime and all, and they are putting out these theories. There's one that's actually charged. We'll get to that in interference of this case. There's also like different stories back and forth. Recently, the reason the judge delayed it is because there was also a federal investigation. The Federal Bureau of Investigation dumped 3,000 additional supporting documentation on the state, which the state says 90 to 95% of it has already been presented through the grand jury, because the defense tried to get this really pushed out for a long time. Based on the amount that was dumped. However, because a lot of it, and it's a lot of the cell phone conversations, emails, it's a lot of the back information. It is computer forensic information, and it's often that state prosecutions and the investigations will go to the FBI when it has to deal with cell phones and encryptions and to verify time of date stamps and things like that. And so it's really just coming back to them with only some additional information, which could be weeded out. It's only like, she said, 5 or 10% of that 3,000 pieces of additional discovery, so to speak. It is the state's obligation when they receive additional information from anywhere to disclose it to the defense. And they did. And the defense wanted to use it for a much bigger delay, but they only got a month. Granted, April 16th is what the judge had said. Okay. There's also the one key thing that is fueling a lot of these conspiracy theories is one text and some family associations. I just want to cover just that brief part of it today, besides saying when the trial had been moved, okay, which it was. To April 16th. And we are still going to cover it. And I will, before that, give you a much broader deep dive into all of the charges, the evidence that's been disclosed, the hearings that have already happened, etc. Well, basically, for right now, Karen has two attorneys, Michael Yannetti and Alan Jackson, and they are attorneys. Let me criminal attorneys of top-notch criminal attorneys. Okay. They have made accusations against the state, a collusion, all kinds of stuff, misappropriate. Like they're trying to say that there's one officer who was on the scene that has a relationship that it's biased. The whole thing is biased because Karen Reed's defense is saying that Officer John O'Keefe did not die from being exposed outside, from being hit by her car and being left there outside, that he actually entered the home of the Alberts. He was attacked inside and then tossed back out. Okay. The state firmly says that their forensic evidence of the cell phone says that he never entered the house. Karen's defense, and with the actual assistance of Aiden Kearney, who is known as Turtle Boy, who also is facing charges related to this case for witness tampering ×2. He recently just went up on new charges within the last month of more witness tampering, and also in the interference of receiving of text and oral communications. Her text or phone messages, he either like absconded them or, took them, received them in general, whatever. Anyway, charged. He's out on bail now. He was being held on bail until the new charges, and then he went for the arraignment, and now he's out. I do believe he's live streaming as of yesterday. So if you want to hear his side of it, please check out his channel. Okay. Well, that's all I want to talk about his charges because I don't know that much about it, and I don't like to speak on things I haven't had a real good deep dive into. But just to say that a true crime YouTuber is involved in this case. Okay. Um, Part of it is because they're saying that it's, I believe it's a sister or sister-in-law of Mr. Albert, who's a homeowner. Okay, made a text message that said, "How long does it take to die in the cold?" The defense is saying that that was made the night before, the night that he died. Prosecution is saying their records indicate that the timestamp has been altered on it, that may be altered and incorrect because their records indicate it happened while she was in the presence of Karen Reed the next morning after the discovery of the body to try to figure out how long he had been out there. So there's two sides to the story there. Okay. They've also got tons of emails and letters that were recently released between the prosecution and witnesses and everyone else that are going through the conspiracies that they're trying to say that because this one officer, Timothy Proctor, I believe, I think his first name is Timothy. If I have it incorrect, I apologize. But Officer Proctor, who is doing the investigation on the scene, is being accused of the defense of being biased, that the whole investigation, the whole case needs to be dismissed because of biased investigation, because he was protecting the people that own the house. He has a family relationship with all of them. He has a personal relationship with all of them. And several years ago, he did attend a wedding of several of the. This is Aiden Kearney, Turtleball. He's out. Okay. This was the judge's release that it's April 16th. All right. This came from Court TV. And I think you should watch some of the videos on it in regards to this. This is the family associations of everybody. But apparently the Brian and Nicole, the ones who are married, the McCabe's and the Alberts, they proved that there was some association within the last several years between the McCabe's, the Alberts, and the investigating officer. So they want to get it all thrown out for that. Okay. Now, attending, they keep saying just because you went to a wedding doesn't mean you were associated. But here's the thing. They were in the wedding. They were close enough to be in the wedding. So it, for me, that kind of does infer some kind of relationship that should have been disclosed, or if not disclosed, at least not denied. Don't deny it, like don't come out here like saying no, 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 no. You know? Hmm. Hmm. So anyway, that's what's got me all turned around and interested in this case now, because it seems like both sides are making mistakes left and right. And I'm trying to see what the evidence is actually going to show when we get to trial, because the motions back and forth just seem to be a lot of finger pointing. I think it's going to be really telling, because the whole conspiracy about him being inside the house and attacked by a dog, there was also a lot about the evidence on why there was no DNA swabs of the wounds on his arm, because because it could have been a dog attack, and they wanted to know if there was dog saliva there. But they have to understand, when the body went to the morgue, they had the evidence that it was hit by a vehicle. So that's what was on the morgue slip. And so those abrasions could have just as easily been that. And so it was really up to the coroner at the time, and the one doing the autopsy and documenting all of the evidence on the body, on whether or not it was reasonable. And they said it was reasonable, that it actually was, in regards to being hit. Some people say that they've seen, I think even in my Discord, I believe Liam had said he's seen dog marks like that and witnessed to it. But when when the body was sent there in the state that it was, or there was nothing being said of anybody, everyone there denied him being inside the house. He never came in. So it's going to be hard. Like that's the key where they're trying to prove the evidence. The conspiracy theory is that Karen Reed is innocent of hitting him with her car, even though she admits to being drunk and dropping him off there, and being out drinking with Brian Albert at the time. Okay. They all three were together. They dropped him off at the house. They got into some kind of an argument, maybe. I'm not sure. But she doesn't recall. She admits then to going home without him. I'm not going to bring you in, dog. Not you, another dog. I hope you have an airtight alibi, because the way these cases are going, they will cite anybody instead of what's really going on. Like they're using any angle they can. But this one's getting really interesting because I don't understand why they're trying to deny any association when there's tons of pictures of the investigating officer with the people that are involved in this chart. Okay, and I'm going to take the chart off now. But I don't understand why they go so far as to deny it. But actually, there's a couple of statements out there by Michael Morrissey, who's one of the district attorneys in this case, and Adam Lowley's the other one. But Michael Morrissey had come out and he made a statement about all of the witness intimidation that's been going on in this case and how horrendous it is, and how they're also being charged for witness intimidation by the other side. Everybody is pointing the finger at everybody else in regards to witness intimidation here. However, the only one charged to date with witness intimidation, two charges on two separate charges have been made against Aiden Kearney in that regard. One of them involves his girlfriend, and that one is a bit of a mess even to dive into. It's being covered by several YouTubers currently. Aiden himself can tell you his side of it. But they do have documentation of an interception of text and oral communications. They wouldn't have charged him if they didn't have that. They would actually have to have that to charge that. Like it doesn't make any sense that they charge him with it if they didn't actually see it or have anything to support it, because this is getting ridiculous with all the charges back and forth. But anyway, that's where we sit with Karen Reed, and I will definitely be bringing you more on her. Are there any questions before I start to wrap up? I will tell you that tomorrow there is a hearing in the Brian Kohlberger case out of Idaho for the Idaho 4, and I am going to be streaming it. It's set to go off at 1 PT, so that's like 3, I believe. 1 o'clock in Idaho is 3 o'clock for me. So I have it scheduled. I'll be on a few minutes before 3 if you guys want to come listen and chat about it afterwards for a little bit, ask questions. But we are supposed to be going over the motions for a change of venue, and also for the new hearing dates, and hopefully a trial date. There was also some discussion about the IgG DNA evidence back and forth about what's sealed, what isn't sealed, and what they got in. So there's going to be all firmed up. So that will be coming out on Judge John Judge's YouTube channel. I'll be streaming it, but I did link it below for all of those who want to follow up later. Those don't get saved on his channel. It's not like Scott McAfee, who he is saving all of the Georgia stuff with the Trump trial on the Georgia election case in regards to Fani Willis. All of the the DA motions there, everything. He saved every hearing, so you can follow those there. But I'm going to record it because he's not been saving them. So you have to either get them from Court TV or somebody who covered them. So this way, if I stream Brian Kohlberger, at least there will be like no talk while the judge and everybody is talking, and hopefully we'll get a good idea of what is going on. So I'm sure being in the UK is an awesome alibi. However, your voicing the dog may make to move address. Ah, it's nice to have you here. It really is. I've got to get better at remembering the names of the people in these cases. Brian Kohlberger is the Idaho for the university student murders in Moscow, Idaho, that happened a few years ago, and there's been some delays in the case. So we're hoping to get a trial this year, but it doesn't look likely. We will see. But the last name Kohlberger is associated to the Idaho 4 out of Moscow, and that was the university killing 4 students. It's kind of related to the TikTok psychic case because it's the same criminal charges against Brian Kohlberger. That actually Ashley Gilfield was accused of defaming Miss Schofield, Professor Schofield, for in Idaho because she said that she had everything to do with it and had an affair with one of the victims. Yeah. So. All right. On that common thread. All right, here we go. The last thing I want to ask you is, what was the common thread, right? Because the common thread, heinous, feckery, most foul. There'll be more than a bit in all 3 cases. There definitely was a lot of feckery, most foul. You are so right on that, but that wasn't the key thing. It was tiny, a little bit tinier than that. It was all messed up, all of it. Yeah, that one, Sean. Yes, it's the same, unfortunately, murders that are involved. Yeah. It was that or investigation by the Keystone Cops. Well, all 3 of them do have prosecution questionable steps. I wouldn't say missteps at this point, because in the Clenney case, I haven't seen enough evidence to say that's a misstep yet. However, there's some stuff going on in the Reed that could be, and there's definitely stuff going on in Gutierrez that looks like little bits of missteps when you disclose people's phone numbers and stuff like that. Yeah. But all right, if you guys don't know, I will tell you. Yeah, there were some lawyer mess ups, but they're precise ones. And precisely, and I'll just expand on it. Mippet and Jin are right about it being in regards to, and Liam, in regards to like it being about them messing up prosecutorial wise. And basically, it's about the privileged information. All 3 cases, the privileged information. Okay. They're talking about text messages that were being absconded from witnesses in the Reed case. They are talking about attorney-client privilege documentation of text messages in the Clenney case. And in Hannah Gutierrez, there is also the release of her phone number. There's also the text messages back and forth in regard, private text messages back and forth from outside of work duty stuff. It was all about confidential information. And where is the line there? Because I've been seeing a lot in the social medias about, places that are setting new laws with AI that they're going to be checking everything on everybody, and when they think it's involving a hate crime or something illegal, like anything, things can be misinterpreted. Well, there you go. All of the above. However, a personal mental question is involved. Yeah, true. I wonder, like, where it's going to land. Like, I'm not accusing them of any kinds of missteps prosecutorially. I want to see what the evidence is that I do think it's a pretty close line there, though, when you're talking about attorney-client privilege text messages back and forth. Okay. And when they're talking about text messages that have the wrong date and timestamps when presented for evidence in the Reed case, that's mucking around with, that ain't good either. And also to have an outside person actually charged with witness tampering. and with receiving oral and text messages illegally. Yeah. And the release of all of this private information is one of the things that has been accused by the prosecution from Reed's that this is, and then also from the Reed defense team that they have released private information in regards to the case out to the public via Turtle Boy and others for this conspiracy theory. I want her to have a good defense. I want everybody to have a good trial. I do. But the common thread here was in regards to privileged information, the leaking of things that used to be sacred, and why it happened all at once in everything I read this week had something to do with it. Mm-hmm. But on that, I shall see some of you tomorrow if you'll be there for the case. And if I can get my stealth together, I will be actually streaming more because there's more to update you on in regards to there's a lot going on with Scientology. There's 3 civil cases that I'm still covering there. We've got the old case with Masterson. Danny Masterson's got himself into a little bit of a trouble, and there's all kinds of stuff going on about that. That's a little brief thing. Not that he's my favorite person to talk about, because he don't. Well, I'd like to wish you all a good night. Thank you for hanging with me for this hour and 15. I do enjoy talking to you about these cases, and hit me up if there's anything I didn't answer that came up. I do promise to bring you a better detail on Karen Reed once I get it all presented up like I normally do with everything, the charges, the history to date, and I'll give you. But for now, those of you that are in the Discord, I did start a room on it, and I'm putting things in there periodically as we come by it, but I will formulate everything in a better, easier to digest nugget or stream of at least an hour just to cover it in full. I will be bringing you more on Hannah Gutierrez as this trial progresses in probably once a week. I'll probably do it again on Tuesday with whatever else that I am covered. And let's just keep our eyes out for Courtney Clenney. She's does got an upcoming hearing again, and we'll see what's going to happen with that because, I just today was more about presenting some of the other sides of the story that we may not have considered in our last streams in regards to Gutierrez and Reed and Clenney, and just to bring up to date just a recent hearing on Karen Reed, because we will be going into that. Okay. I know. Sarah Boone. Who's mentioning Sarah Boone? Hey, Juju, you come in and the first thing you say is Sarah Boone. No Sarah Boone tonight. But it was good, Juju. I've got even better than Sarah Boone. I got Karen Reed and Courtney Clenney and Hannah Gutierrez. It was a trifecta of craziness going on in here. These cases are quite complicated. All right. So everyone, have a good night. And I will see you all tomorrow, 3:00 for the hearing. Otherwise, during the week for some more updates in towards the weekends for lots of fun. Okay? All right. Good night.